The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
Hi, this is Chris, and this is a bonus episode of The Amateur Traveler. Starting in 2009, and for 10 or 11 years, Gary Arndt, Jen Leo, and I put out another podcast called This Week in Travel. That show ended during the pandemic. I bowed out. This is our first chance to get together since then, and so this is a reunion episode of This Week in Travel. If you are a fan of that show, I hope you'll enjoy this. And if you don't care about it, go ahead and skip this episode. I won't take it personally. But here is This Week in Travel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This Decade in Travel, the reunion edition. My name is Gary Arndt, the guy who doesn't travel anymore. With me, as usual, the man so nice they named him twice, Mr. Chris Christensen. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, and hopefully this one will work. We tried this yesterday, and Comcast was not cooperative.
And also with us, as always, the mother of a teen, Jen Leo.
Hey, guys. I missed you so much. It's so good to get back together. And Chris is traveling enough for all three of us, so we're good.
I know. Things have reversed. I used to be the guy that was always on the road. And I still tell the story of when I was in the mine in Poland.
Oh, you've got to give that up, Gary.
No, I never will. Because it's podcasting history that was lost. It's like one of the scrolls in the Library of Alexandria. It'll never be recovered.
Well, you got to finish the story for those who are listening, at least.
So we were recording an episode of This Week in Travel. I couldn't join because I was scheduled to go on the tour of the salt mine, the UNESCO World Heritage Site,
right,
outside of Krakow. And I'm down like a mile beneath the earth, and there's a gift shop. And I check my phone, and I realize there's Wi-Fi. There's like an open Wi-Fi connection. So I joined the call that you guys are on, but Chris didn't hit record.
Yep.
Chris, wasn't that St. Patrick's Day, like our annual St. Patrick's Day episode with Corey?
I have no idea. I don't think so. I want to say the guest was Mark Peacock from Travel Commons, who has just recently stopped doing his podcast after 19 years.
That's a run.
That's a good run.
Very, very good run.
Well, I'm Amateur Travelers in its 20th year. It will hit 20 years next July 2nd.
I'm pretty sure it'll hit 40 years.
We'll see.
Well, we decided to do this because we haven't talked to each other in a while. A bunch of stuff has happened, at least to us. So, Chris, why don't you start? What's new with you?
What's new with me since... so I opted out of the last 6 months of This Week in Travel. We decided we went for about 11 years recording this show. I did about 10 years and 6 months. And then basically my life had just gotten way too busy because the last 6 years that I recorded the show with you guys, I was working part-time as a contractor, traveling more, and had more time for things. I was up to 4 podcasts at that point. I was doing Amateur Traveler, which I still do, the Bible Study podcast, which I still do, and then I was also doing this podcast, and then the Passport Travel Marketing and PR podcast with Leif Pedersen, but stopped that one and opted out of this one because I went back to work full time at a 6-person startup company in the fintech space, doing travel budgeting and travel budgeting. Sorry, doing financial planning and budgeting software. So, in the last year before the pandemic, right after I quit this, it was kind of tough because I couldn't travel as much, after having 6 years of more traveling. And then, I was like, was this a good idea? Should I have gone back to full time? And then a pandemic hit. So I wasn't traveling anyway, and it turned out to be a pretty good way to keep busy during the pandemic. So everybody was talking about the big changes of working at home. I'd been working on my futon for a while, so everybody just kind of joined my lifestyle.
Yep.
For me, other than the fact that I couldn't, go see my parents and I couldn't go see my daughter for over a year, who's on the East Coast, our life was relatively unchanged and just kept busy at a startup company. And 3 years in, we sold that company to American Express. So I worked at American Express for 2 years. I was a director of engineering at American Express until this June, when I retired from that job. So I am a full-time travel blogger now. I'm not doing any other jobs other than Amateur Traveler and various associated projects like that. So it's been a change.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well, the timing was right, Gary, because, I think us stopping was because also we stopped during the pandemic, right?
Yeah. And they're just,
there's no travel.
The last season of Laverne and Shirley where they moved to LA, or the last season of the Brady Bunch where they brought in Cousin Oliver, or that's kind of what the last 6 months of This Week in Travel were like.
Yeah, nobody go listen, please don't. Nobody ever does series endings well, but I love this get together. I love this get together that we're doing right now.
What's new with you, Jen?
Well, like we were saying, when we started This Week in Travel, Cora was an infant. I think she was probably in a Bjorn, just months old. And now she's just a few weeks away from turning 16 and practicing driving. And her travel is way more important than mine. She just got back from rural Alaska. She was there for 2 weeks on a broadcasting program where they were teaching this town in Kotlik, population 300, half of which are mostly kids under 18. And they were teaching them how to set up their TV studio and do their broadcasting program, because Cora's in a very, very, just high level broadcasting 6-year program between her middle school and her high school. And so that was an incredible experience. She was just immersed in their life and living with them and seeing how people live so simply, where they're, either hunting for their food or buying packaged food as it's shipped in. You could only get into Kotlik by plane or boat. So that was neat. As for me, I've been heavily into the school community. I'm now the PTA president for all of Carlsbad, 14 schools, and also on the exec board. I didn't tell you this yet, Gary. I'm on the exec board for the speech and debate boosters at her high school for speech and debate. So very active in the school, and I don't have a travel outlet right now, so haven't been doing any freelancing in that regard, but doing a bunch of domestic travel. I went to Palm Springs, Vegas, Bend in Portland, Oregon, and DC, Virginia recently.
Now, Jen, you're kind of known as Vegas Jen Leo. Have you been to Vegas since they've opened the Eye? Or the Sphere?
The Eye? The Sphere, yeah.
The Sphere, yeah.
Yeah, the Eye's been there forever, but yes, I have been there since they've had the Sphere, but I haven't been to a concert in it. And friends have sent pictures and videos, and it just looks amazing. Definitely adding it to the bucket list?
I was thinking eye because the first picture I saw of it was when it was displaying a gigantic eyeball.
Oh,
Oh,
And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically a giant dome that is a monitor,
right.
inside and out, I think. So you can display like a globe on the outside and things pertaining to a concert or whatever the event is inside on the walls around everything. So it's very
the
cool.
Eagles are playing there right now.
The band, not the football team.
Correct.
No, it's literally the
Nostalgia rock.
Raptor Resource Center, and they have some eagles and falcons and things like that.
And
For
Gary,
me,
you've been podcasting.
Yes, every day.
Every day.
I make the donuts. I get up. I started. Well, I guess I talked about this before the show ended, but
Right.
I had my doubts about where travel blogging was going before the pandemic hit because it had become all SEO. And when I started back in 2007, your website kind of was your social media. People left comments on your blog.
Right.
They would, you would, and that's how they read it. It came up in their RSS reader. And all of that changed over the years as social media became prominent. And by like 2018, 2019, I was talking to bloggers, and it became clear like 90% of all their traffic was coming from search.
Right.
And I don't think people ever really thought through what the implications of that were. That eventually, Google doesn't care about small content creators at all. They've killed,
I wouldn't say they care about large content creators either, but yes, they care less about small content creators.
Remember back in the day, there were content farms that were valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, and they killed them, and they had no compulsion of doing that. So they're certainly not going to care about a blogger. Right. And I figured it was just a matter of if not when, and that kind of happened this year. For those of you who don't know what's going on, like a lot of, I'd say almost every travel blog was just hammered by Google algorithm changes. Some of the very largest ones I know of, I saw some that's like Nomadic Matt lost 80% of his traffic.
Yeah, 80 was not uncommon. I actually gained traffic this year, so it wasn't everything, but it felt like when you were looking online, it seemed like everybody was saying that they'd lost traffic.
In his case, he has a very large email newsletter that he's been able to fall back on. But for a lot of people, this is just, even if they were able to eke out a living, it was something they're no longer able to do. So when the pandemic hit, I kind of thought, well, this is an opportunity to do. I can't rely on the travel business for at least a couple of years, so I might as well do something else. And I had this idea of a podcast. I had the artwork made. I had the music already paid for. I bought the licensing. I just never pulled the trigger on it because I was thinking of doing a Dan Carlin 3-hour episode podcast. Right. And that didn't work. And then I put it on. And then I met Chris Gillibo at a event a couple of years ago. He had launched a daily podcast. And I was talking to him briefly, and he said it was one of the best things he had ever done. And
he has a daily podcast about side hustles.
Yeah.
Which is a good show.
And so I thought, well, what if I just change the format instead of really long shows to really short shows? And, and I kind of just ran the numbers on it and was like, well, this works out much, much better. And I remember I even pitched the idea to you, and you were like, well, this is a good idea, but you're crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I still think that. I thought it would be successful. I did not know it would be as successful as it has been. I will admit that. But I thought it would do well. When I say as successful it has been, you've cracked the top 100 list at least sometimes, of top 100 of all podcasts. So
it peaked at number 13.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing, Carrie.
That's pretty great. So so I was doing, with Amateur Traveler, which was always bigger than This Week in Travel, I was doing, maybe 2 million downloads a year, and Gary is now more than 1 million a month. I don't know where you are now.
1.5 a month.
1.5 a month. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between my two podcasts, I'm probably 3 million a year. So, a different order of magnitude So I didn't know it would get that big, but I love it. I mean, I've been listening since the beginning, and it's.
Or as I was telling Jen, I get This Week in Travel's monthly downloads before 10 a.m. every day.
Yep.
And we never worked half as hard as in 1 month as you do in one episode.
Right, but we also never made $1 either, so that would have been hard to.
The thing is, though, it's not. It really isn't that hard. I mean, there are people that go to work every day for 8 hours.
Right.
So I don't think what I'm doing is like, it's not working in a coal mine.
No,
I mean, it's making a podcast, and I get to write about whatever I want, whenever I want. I mean, there are a lot worse things in this world than what I'm doing. So it's just that it's constant, right? Because it's a daily show. It has to go out every day. I have a lot more sympathy now for people that like worked at newspapers or TV, news shows or something that had to get out something every single day.
Right. I am super proud of both of you, and I think I definitely took for granted the time that we had with This Week in Travel. It was always fun to connect with other travelers and travel writers and have our chats, and it was a lovely part of the weekend. So I'm grateful for that time in our lives, and I'm super proud that you guys have had the stamina and the persistence to keep going with what you're doing and to reach this level of success and still have the gumption and the moxie to keep going. And Gary, you're already planning on how to scale even more.
Oh, I absolutely can grow the show a lot more. I have no doubt about that at all. Because I'm a daily show, you kind of have to take it a little bit with a grain of salt because I'm publishing, 7 times more than the average person. So if I was doing
but you're publishing 7 times more than the average person. So, I mean,
if I was doing a weekly show with the numbers I'm doing, I would be getting, 1/7.
Right.
So there's still a lot of room to grow, I think.
Bon chien. Bonjour, je suis Theo, a tour leader with Explore, and this is Punti. He's helping us find truffles under the trees next to this beautiful vineyard. Maybe for tomorrow's cooking class? Oui, call semi-on heure. Parfait. Semi-on o'clock. Not everyone gets to enjoy a Bordeaux sunset this way, but you will if you explore. No, Punti. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel. Explore.
Hey there, Ryan Reynolds here. It's a new year, and you know what that means. No, not the diet. Resolutions. A way for us all to try and do a little bit better than we did last year. And my resolution, unlike big wireless, is to not be a raging and raise the price of wireless on you every chance I get. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited. See mintmobile.com for details.
I want to go back to something you were talking about because I don't think the listeners all know when you talked about Google and SEO that you moved away from it in part because, you thought that eventually Google would take the traffic away. But the other thing that people don't know about was that when you say that all the traffic was coming from SEO, that means that everybody was writing the same articles. Everybody was writing, 27 things to do in Bulgaria, or 28 things to do in Bulgaria, or 20. It was all the same things because it was based on what people are searching for. And so I know that was the other thing that bugged you, is that there wasn't as much creativity in it at that point.
It was crabs in a bucket, right? Because there's only SEO is a zero-sum game. There can only be one thing at the top. There can only be 10 things on page 1. And when you have everybody all competing, doing keyword research for the most competitive places, you end up getting the same articles written over and over. And this is something the travel industry has not figured out yet, as far as I can tell, that it is absolutely useless bringing someone to a press trip that's just going to do an SEO article because there are already 10 things on page 1. And if there's something that isn't on page 1 that you want written, your best bet is to just write it for your destination website, not bring in someone to do it. Just hire someone to do it. But they're still working under this model from the days of magazines and newspapers. And Well, I've kind of washed my hands of it. I don't really care at this point, but yeah, it's kind of a bizarre industry.
I feel like I'm getting more of my travel inspiration lately from TV and film. I watched that movie Roadhouse, and I thought it was
The
in
Amazon
Florida.
one?
No, the one with Jake
Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, that was on Amazon, wasn't it?
Oh, Amazon, probably, yeah.
Like the new one, not the Patrick Swayze
The new
one.
one. Yeah, no, the new one with Jake Gyllenhaal. And I thought it was in the Florida Keys. I'm sitting there watching them in this open air bar, looking amazing, looking at these just low key, casual beaches. And I said to John, I said, oh my gosh, we have to go to the Florida Keys. We have to go. We're putting this on the list. I got to go hang out at this place. And then I quickly Googled and said, oh, Roadhouse film location. And it turned out it was in the Dominican Republic. So I was well, are we going to the Florida Keys, or do I have to figure out a way to get to the Dominican Republic?
I do that all the time. I watch a lot of movies, and I'll go do a search on like filming locations for where something was filmed. Just out of curiosity.
Oh yeah, every Bond film back in the 70s or 80s or all of those sort of big budget films that were set in Europe and fancy cities and things like that were definitely drove traffic to those places.
The only problem is for some places like Vancouver or Toronto, they have a lot of things that are filmed there, but it's never as Vancouver or Toronto. It's always like they're New York or someplace else. Yeah. So no one's saying, "Oh, I have to go to Vancouver." It's like, "Oh, I got to go to New York."
Well, one thing I should mention, because we talked about it a little bit, Gary and I have. So Gary and I, at last year's International Media Marketplace, IMM, which is a big conference where you can meet with different destinations and pitch them things. Gary arranged that we would do a talk on podcasting, and why everybody who's in travel should work with podcasters, why they should advertise on podcasters, which was what Gary wanted, why they should bring podcaster places, which was what I wanted. And I know Gary has been frustrated that nothing ever came of that. But this press trip that I was just on, that was a press trip that was supposed to be for podcasters, and they were out looking for podcasters to go on this press trip to Spain, was pitched at IMM. And the person who said yes had heard that presentation. So it may be that it wasn't completely useless, Gary. I wanted to tell you that.
Spain is the only destination that has ever worked with me.
Yep.
So I'm wondering, and I know that they are very pleased with it because it's so different from the other marketing.
Different traffic source. So
yeah. So, and if you just look at like the general podcasting stats, every so often, like we've been through the cycle. Remember were you on the Twitter cruise when that first happened? This is 2009.
No, you're talking about the big boat cruise?
This is 2009. They did the first like social media thing. It was the first travel company to ever do something with like influencers. And they did it. And it was controversial because someone took over some of the hashtags and stuff. But ever since then, there seems to be this thing where there's like this new thing and everybody wants to be on board the new thing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? When Google Plus came about or Snapchat or something.
I remember when Jen wanted us to get on Periscope or Meerkat or whatever.
That's right. Meerkat
but you look
and Periscope.
At podcasting stats and it just keeps gradually getting bigger every year. Right. By, a couple percentage points, not a huge spike, but it's just steady. And I would say podcasting along with email, they're not sexy.
No.
But it works. And everybody knows that. And you'll listen to like bloggers or content creators and like, oh, you got to have an email list. I never once, not even once, had a person from the travel industry inquire about my email list.
Right.
But then you can sell them products.
Yeah, you can make money, but the travel industry, he's
just saying the travel industry doesn't pay attention to that. They're still hooked on the vehicle by Instagram or TikTok or whatever the latest thing is. Yeah.
Yeah. And
I think they're still into the vanity likes and crowd approval.
Yeah. And there was this period where it was frustrating because they didn't pay attention at all to anything online. They were still so focused on magazines and newspapers, and then they eventually had to because they all died. There's nothing left anymore.
Or at least lost half their pages, or, those that survived. Yeah.
And now it's like it's a replay of the same thing, except they're replaying, 2015 all over again, where they're trying to, they're always kind of behind the curve.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, rant over.
Well, Chris, how many years have you been podcasting? I mean, you were sort of at the forefront
Well,
of
I started in 2005, so I'm in my 20th year. I hit 19 years in July. Yeah.
Right. So you've seen it grow and grow and grow since the beginning.
Sure. Yeah. The funny thing is, I thought I was late to podcasting in July of 2005 because podcasting was almost a year old by that point. It started in September of 2004, and obviously audio predates that, but the combination of audio and an RSS feed was 2004. So it has grown since then. So yeah, I think I had 2 episodes out before iTunes added podcasting. I was right around that time.
Totally on a tangent, but I made a T-shirt that said, "I'd like you better at 1.25 speed." Sometimes you hear people that when you can't adjust the playback speed, and it's just like, this would be so much better if it was just a little faster.
Well, I tend to listen between 1.5 and 2x. So you can imagine that some of my favorite podcasters, when I hear them at normal speed, are like, "Oh my gosh, you speak slowly." So,
well, instead of talking about ourselves, we can talk probably about travel a little bit. It took a while, but the industry seems has bounced back, and in some ways even bigger than it was before the pandemic. A lot of the same problems, I think, are still there. I think, if anything, some of the over-tourist problems. I know that's something we talked about a lot. Venice has put into, I think you have to get like a permit now to actually visit Venice, at least during the summer and the peak season.
It has been interesting after the pandemic, though, with people having both had the tourism go away and all of the money associated with it, and that very negative time period for a lot of destinations. I remember going on a cruise just after I was vaccinated, but the first trips that I'm doing and going to ports in Caribbean that it was their first ship. It was their first cruise ship in port, and it was a small ship. It was a 300 passenger ship with 140 people on it, Windstar cruise. But they greeted us with fireboats and literally steel drum bands and the governor speaking and things like that. So, people have lived through that where they lost the money, but then places like Barcelona and Venice have also lived through, hey, with all these tourists not here, all the people who were trying to live there, why I like Ice City better. And so one of the things I think we're seeing is now that they remember that, we're seeing more regulation, more people saying, Santorini just announced they're not going to allow 7 cruise ships in the port at the same time. I think they cut it back down to, I want to say 4 or 5, which is still a lot for that destination. But they basically are, saying we want some of the money, but we don't want all of the people. Or we're going to focus on luxury travel so that we have fewer travelers spending as much money, or all of those sorts of things are going on. But I think it was affected by the experience of the pandemic in multiple different ways.
I've not been on a lot of cruises, but I've seen this happen. I did a cruise once, and we stopped in Sicily, and there must have been 5 ships there.
Yep.
And this one small city was just hit like a tornado. Massive people all arrive at the same time.
Yep.
And then by 5, they're gone and the city's empty.
Right.
And it's just such an enormous, it was like an amusement park. It was like going to, Disney World or something on, the busiest day of the year. It was crazy. So I'm not shocked at all that they want to kind of manage it. And I think people need to kind of realize that the problem of over tourism really is, it's not that there are too many people traveling. It's too many people traveling at the same place at the same time.
Right.
And I've had so many conversations with people once they find out, I'll like, oh, I traveled around the world for, over a decade. And I start giving them, advice. They'll ask me travel questions. Where should they go? And I have all these different places. And at the end, it's like, well, we're going to go to Italy and Ireland. And that's all they ever do
in July.
Yeah. And that's, it's like, well, if you go, I was in Venice once in December. There was nobody there. Like, I mean, granted, a lot of things weren't open, but you could, the cathedral and all the other, interesting attractions were. And I don't think a lot of people even consider that.
And even just timing, we were in Santorini, which, gets very over touristed, especially 1/2 mile part of the main city of Thera. Thera is the island. Thera is the name of the town. Or do I have that backwards? They get dropped off by bus at this one spot. They walk down 1/2 mile and then take the gondola down the hill. And so it's that part of the island that gets so full. But we were there just a little early. We were there in May, and the place where we stayed, our host Costas would sit down with us at dinner and say, "Mama's in the kitchen. What do you want? What do you want to eat?" And this is what we got. And he said, "I couldn't do this for you 2 weeks from now. It'll be crazy." But in May there were still 2 or 3 cruise ships in port, but it was not the same.
Wow. That's pretty magical.
Yep.
Do you think there's less travel happening because of just people have less money with the cost of everything going up?
All the numbers are up.
Americans are traveling a lot because the dollar is really strong right now.
Right.
I want to go. I'm thinking of going to Australia or New Zealand this winter, partially to avoid the cold, but also to seek revenge upon these nations. Because when I went there in 2008, the Australian dollar was at parity with the U.S. dollar.
Oh, wow.
I paid a lot to travel in Australia, and I kind of want to get. It's like when you lose money at the blackjack table and you want to get it back at the buffet. That's kind of my approach to going back to Australia.
Now you're speaking my language.
That's funny.
What's it like now, Gary? What's it like now? I haven't kept up.
It's close to 60 cents, I think. I mean, everywhere the dollar is just stronger than currencies across the board. I mean, a little while I checked like what it was against the Japanese yen is really kind of going in the toilet. That was like, I want to say 80 to the dollar, and now it's like 160 when I was there. So like I started traveling at the worst time to travel for like the dollar. I should almost go do it again. South African rand, even the euro and the pound are lower than what they were, say 10 years ago.
Do you have a destination short list of where you think the dollar can go the farthest?
The places that are the biggest basket cases?
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices. Plus, extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with points. So you can get big flavors and big savings. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
Hey, Atlanta. Say hello to Small Business Help from Apple. That's right. We're here to make starting and running your business simpler. From helping you choose the right devices to setting them up hassle-free, we can help you build your business in no time. Speak to a business expert and get the help you need at no cost whatsoever. At Apple, we're open for your small business. Go to apple.com/small business or visit an Apple store to learn more.
Like one of the places I would recommend is to take a envelope full of very crisp, brand new $100 bills and go to Argentina and exchange those bills on the black market. And the black market's not really that black. A couple on the street will tell you where to go to exchange money because everybody does it. Although I think they may have liberalized the official exchange rate.
I'm hearing that has changed, and now it's not like there's 2 different exchange rates.
But yeah, they've had really bad inflation. I think they're kind of getting it under control now. But your money can go very far there. If it was a couple months ago, you asked me that question, I would have said Lebanon. Probably not today.
Well,
Egypt.
I've always wanted an Argentinian steak, so your first destination is...
Oh, it's so good. I remember when we were there, and it wasn't even, the exchange rate wasn't as good as it is now. You know, going out to dinner with four of us and getting the steak, you know, platter and the bottle of wine, and, you know, eating till we were full and paying $30 for four people.
Oh my gosh, Chris!
And it was good. You know, this is the restaurant we picked out because we smelled it as we were walking past. You know, it was where all the locals were. It was awesome.
I first went there in 2005, and it was very similar in terms of like the pricing.
Yeah. And this is Buenos Aires was where I was for that particular.
So how much would it
meal.
be today? Family of four, steaks, and the whole nines for everybody with a bottle of wine.
I don't know, but it would be a lot cheaper than what you're paying in around San Diego. That's for damn sure.
Oh, absolutely, everything is.
Jen, do you remember a story? I think we may have had the guy in the show where he tried to travel just paying Bitcoin.
Yes.
How long ago was that?
I got him on way before Bitcoin was heard about by the mainstream.
What do you think the cost of his travel would be given the price today? Because you know the story about the pizza, right?
10,000
day
Bitcoin.
pizza.
So
Bitcoin
that's
day.
the day where someone made the first transaction with Bitcoin, and they bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
And
That poor guy.
Well, he doesn't have any regrets about it, but it's the equivalent of like almost not quite I think it's $600 million today for 2 pizzas. And I think someone did something as like, you bought 2 pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, and now 2 Bitcoin will get you 10,000 pizzas.
I wish I knew what that episode was or what the price of Bitcoin was when we had him on. I'm going to guess it was in the 5 to 10,000 range. I'm just maybe 5.
I think it was way lower than that.
Well,
Like,
do you
it
remember
was-
what year? If you can remember what year.
I'd have to go search, but
Yeah. Anyway.
nobody would do that. I
But
mean,
what a cool thing that he did. And it was so much harder then. Now with Travala, have you heard about Travala?
no.
Nope.
So they've got like 90 different cryptocurrencies that you can use for hotels and flights. I think flights, don't quote me on the flights, but definitely for hotels and excursions and activities. And you can pay with all sorts of coins. So people that only want to use crypto to travel the world now they can do it through
There are
Travala.
point of sale systems that let you use the Lightning Network. I know. I've seen people with like El Salvador has been trying to adopt it, and they have receipts where you can go to McDonald's and just do a Lightning transaction and pay for it that way. And I think there are some places in Germany that do it too. El Salvador, actually, I wouldn't mind going down there now because that's a place that's changed a lot as well. Although you can't really get any good deals because they use the US dollar. So they got rid of the peso long time ago.
That is on my list of things that I want to do. Is there's a Intrepid has a no, not Intrepid. G has a trip that does kind of all of Central America. It's a 2-3 week trip, and I did Belize and Guatemala last year, including Tikal and some of the islands, Cocker Key, out in Belize, and had a wonderful time. And I'd love to do more of the Central America.
Gary, if you
I did a G
go,
tour where we arrived and we flew into San Salvador, and then we went to Honduras and Guatemala.
Mm-hmm.
Gary, if you do go down to El Salvador, make sure you get the Strike wallet. Jack Mahlers is the guy who's behind the Strike app, and that's what they use to bridge El Salvador onto the Bitcoin network.
Oh, Jen.
I mean, we're combining travel a little bit, aren't we? Yeah, I don't know. That's
a
old.
cold storage wallet.
That's one I haven't seen. That's not the one I use, but I believe
this
you.
is the
There's
Cold
many
Card
different kinds.
Q.
Well, our listeners can't see what you're holding up to the camera.
But it looks like a small calculator, and even as a calculator mode, so it will be a calculator. if if you're carrying it and someone wants to ask what it is. Basically looks like a raspberry. No, I'm sorry, a blackberry.
So where's everybody headed next? I'm going to Austin and New Braunfels, Texas in November.
I am heading to LA for a Billy Joel concert, but then I'm going to Colombia, to Cartagena, and then to Istanbul for the Society of American Travel Writers conference. And I'm trying to book a pre-trip beforehand, and think I may do a whirlwind trip through 4 of the Balkans, through Albania, North Macedonia, Kosovo, and Montenegro.
Wow.
But like in 4 days.
But the big question is, will you be rug shopping?
No. No, but if you go back to an older episode, the first episode of America, what show am I on here? Of Amateur Traveler on Istanbul, I took a microphone. I was wearing a microphone with a lapel mic as somebody tried to sell me a carpet in the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul. And so you can listen to the whole thing. It was a fun experience. I mean, I went and had tea with them, and it's 2 brothers from who were not Turkish, but Kurds from Eastern Turkey. And it was a very hospitable experience, but I just don't want a Turkish carpets, which Fair enough. Could not believe, I think, really. But.
Carpets are hard to get back home.
Oh, they'll ship them.
Yeah, I know, but it's factor that. I mean, it adds, quite a bit to the cost of the carpet. It's not like a tiny little thing that you're gonna.
Well, in that same trip, I was actually out in Gaziantep, Turkey, which is in more central eastern Turkey, where it starts to change into more Kurdish and Arabic instead of Turkish people. And that's where a lot of the carpets come from. So our Turkish exchange student who was from Gaziantep said, if you really wanted a carpet, you should buy it in Gaziantep. But it's a very different experience. When you go into the market in Gaziantep, everybody was talking to the Yavuz, who was our exchange student, to his father, because they didn't speak English at all. But when you're in, the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul, no matter what language you pull out, I bet the salespeople could speak it. It's they could sell you a carpet in a lot of languages.
I did a road trip through the Balkans a couple years ago, and I rented a car in Macedonia and went through, Kosovo and Serbia and Bosnia and Montenegro and then Albania. I think you'll like it.
It's not necessarily the best time of year to go in November, but as long as I'm in the region, I want to do something else. I have been to no new countries this year, even though I've done some travel this year. But, I've been to Spain twice and can't think of where else.
I have not been out of the United States since February 28th, 2020.
Oh, my. Wow.
And I, for all practical purposes, have not taken my camera out of my bag since then either.
Huh.
Wow.
So that has been a huge change for me.
Was it difficult in the beginning to stay put after so much motion?
Well, I got an apartment before the pandemic started, and that was a bit of a transition. Like I hadn't cooked a meal for myself in like a decade. And so when I finally got an apartment, I was just eating out every meal, which was not a good idea for a couple, on a couple different levels, both in terms of food and money. So that took a while, and I cook a lot more now. And I've actually become pretty good at it.
If you do say so yourself.
But no, I tell this to people, like I've traveled a lot, and I was really burned out kind of towards the end. And this is the same story I've heard from so many people that have been on the road for a long period of time, is that it's tiring. And I don't think I'll ever go back to traveling the way I did. I've done that. I'm glad I did it. But So I may do something like what I'm planning this winter, go someplace for a month or two, live there temporarily, and then, come back, do something like that.
I love that idea. I hope to be doing that after Cora's out of the house.
You could do it with Cora.
No, well, we talked about this yesterday, audience, and Gary went on a rant about college not being necessary, which is fine. It's an option, but Cora does want to go to school. So we've got about 2.5 years. And so I'm trying to figure out how
I'm not anti-college. I went to college, but the place I went to cost $16,000 a year when I went. Today, it's 80,000.
Oh, the college you went to now is 80.
It costs more than Harvard right now. And I was just like, I can't recommend anyone ever going here.
What school is that?
McAllister. It's where...
Is that a small private school?
Yeah. Kofi Annan went there. Walter Mondale. It's a kind of like a top tier liberal arts college in the Midwest. They had a very good debate team. That's how I got. That's how I got in. Their coach was like one of the best coaches in the country, and they had just won the national championship, and he recruited me. So if Cora does really well at that, that is a foot in the door for a lot of schools.
Well, let's see. I think it's her secondary passion right now. Her first passion is the broadcasting. So, and she's really good in front of the camera. She's so comfortable in front of the camera, and she's got excellent verbal skills. So we'll see.
My son, since this is a change since we met, he was a podcaster, I think, last time we got together, but he now basically makes his living through his YouTube channel. He's opened up a second YouTube channel. He does a D&D channel, and then also does one now just opening about film reviews and not necessarily new films, but he's always been, a huge film fan, and he's got a plan of all the different films he's planning on talking about over the next year.
He does this all from your basement?
Not from my basement, no, from his house. So
wait, someone has a D&D YouTube channel that's not from their parents' basement?
That is correct.
Wow,
that is correct.
That's impressive.
I love it, Chris.
And he's not caring for his infant son, his 6-month-old son. So.
Were there any other subjects you guys wanted to cover? I mean, we have years worth of stuff to catch up on here.
I just wanted to. Did you guys see the pictures of the people that were at the TBEC Summit in Alaska? Those looked fantastic.
Yes. Did not make it that because I was in Spain on a press trip, but otherwise I might have made it up to Alaska.
Now, what does summit mean?
So TBEX, the Travel Blog Exchange Conference, is doing these new things called summits that are supposed to be an extension of the one, Gary, that we did in the castle in Ireland.
Oh, just smaller events with...
Yeah, but this is a little somewhere in between that, where it's supposed to be a smaller event, and I'm not sure I fully understand the difference between a regular conference and the summit, and then I wasn't at this one. They're doing another one next year in Wichita, so they've announced a North America and a European regular conference in Quebec City and in Donegal, Ireland. But then they're also going to be doing a TBEX summit in Wichita. I'll probably try and go to that. I'll know more after that. But
they better
Rick
get
is trying
Ralph
to do
Potts.
something a little different. What?
They better get Ralph Potts.
Is Ralph Potts from Wichita?
He's from Wichita, and I think his wife is too, Kiki, and they're traveling all over the world and sharing it on Instagram and Facebook.
He's also doing a podcast, I think.
A lot of podcasters these days. It's a dime a dozen.
Actually, the number's been going down. There was a huge spike during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then since then, if you look at the number of podcasts that have put out an episode every week, it's just been kind of steadily declining for the last 2 years.
Yeah, listenership is up and podcasters are down. So,
which is great.
Yeah.
Less competition.
Except that some of the new people coming in are bringing in a big audience. So I think it's a little harder.
Do you
to get
feel that
noticed
if
these
you
days.
have a podcast, you have to also do all the other branches of social media and
No.
have a presence everywhere?
No.
Tell us
Social
why.
media doesn't drive traffic to podcasts that much.
What he said. I ignore social media now almost entirely.
I mean, I do publicize every time an Amateur Traveler episode comes out. I publicize it on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Threads and
So
Pinterest.
you are.
Yeah, but I don't think the only reason I do it is it doesn't take me that much time. I don't think
was
it's
doing
really
that,
driving that much traffic.
and then I stopped doing it, and absolutely nothing happened when I stopped doing it.
The main reason I do it is that I still want to have a footprint in the social media channels because I'm still pitching for press trips and things like that. And so I want to stay top of mind. You know, if I do something on Germany, I want the German Tourism Board to know that I'm doing things on Germany. I also send them an email that says, hey, we just did another episode on your destination. Again, most people don't even, half the people even respond to that email, but it's just a mechanism to stay top of mind for me with the tourism boards.
Brand recognition.
But yeah, I don't think it drives traffic. If Gary does an ad for Amateur Traveler on his podcast, which we're in the same network now, so he is doing those, or at least my ads are running on his shows, that actually drives traffic.
Because he has such a huge audience.
Well, just because podcast listeners know how to get podcasts. And so, if you can have something that they think if they're travelers and they're interested, then that
I think that's actually the truth for any platform. You grow the platform on the platform.
On the platform, yeah.
You don't grow an Instagram account by promoting it on TikTok or vice versa.
Right.
And that the podcasting is in its own way a platform. Jen, you wanted to do picks of the week.
Oh my gosh.
I forgot that they were called that. I did want to do travel tips.
I'll start because
good.
So when I sold my home, it was in March of 2007, and I started traveling. And it was just after Steve Jobs had done the introduction of the iPhone. And the iPhone didn't come up for sale until June. So there was this period of time where there was no iPhone, but everybody knew about it. So my travels basically started when the iPhone was released. And so I've been able to witness the entire evolution of it. And I remember having an old Samsung phone, and I literally threw it in the garbage at the airport in New Zealand because I couldn't use it anymore because there weren't SIM cards at the time or anything. And things have changed so much. One of the biggest things is that modern phones now have eSIMs.
Yeah.
So you can get a SIM card without a card that you can just, change your carrier without having to get that little stupid thing that with the pin and everything
or
get
even have
out.
a second carrier.
Yeah.
How do you find it on your phone to know if you even have that capability?
If you have a modern iPhone within the last 3 years or so, or a modern Android phone, you have eSIM capabilities.
But the other thing is that the Apple ecosystem has gradually just become more and more integrated. So when I was traveling, I never got an Apple Watch because I was always concerned about battery life and things like that. And I eventually bit the bullet and got it. And I really like it. It integrates so well with the phone. I can get notifications on the watch. Gives me a lot of information at a glance. The AirPods and the way they work with it. And I'm finally at a point where my entire life is on USB-C. I don't need a whole bunch of different cables for everything. I'm able to take my laptop and go work somewhere. And it's just a really slick ecosystem. And now that I'm doing more stuff on a desktop, I'm talking to right now on the Apple Studio monitor, which is glorious. It's in 6K. I think there's a new Mac Mini coming out in like a couple of weeks, I think, that it's supposed to be announced. And I may buy that right away just so I can get second monitor support. And the whole ecosystem has been great. And I traveled with, I was a Windows guy. I bought a Mac laptop when I started traveling. I think I have 3 of them sitting in a closet of various iterations that I use traveling that are all pretty much bricks now. But yeah, I've been very pleased, and I think it's a great environment. And if you ever do have problems on the road, I got my one of my laptops repaired when I was in Saigon. I went into an Apple. It wasn't like an official Apple store, but they took care of it, and I was able. And I think I also got it done once in Tel Aviv, and so you can always find support pretty much anywhere you go. So that'd be my recommendation. I think it's only gotten better and tighter. And even like if I'm using an Apple TV, I can take my phone and do color calibration with the camera on the phone for the TV. And I can now use an iPad as a second monitor for my laptop. Real easy now. So when I'm recording the podcast on the road, I'll be able to have GarageBand in one window and my script in another. And everything just works together so well now that I just really like the ecosystem. And it's on a travel standpoint, I can put everything in a very small compartment in my bag. The power brick is tiny. They don't even have fans anymore. During the pandemic, I blew all of my miles to get an M1 MacBook Air. I'm still using it. Works fine.
You can do production on an Air?
Oh my, yeah.
You don't have to get a MacBook Pro anymore?
No.
I mean, for screen size, that's about it. But in terms of power, the new M1 to M4 line of processors are so powerful. Like I said, they don't have a fan. Have you ever put like a laptop on your lap or something and it gets really hot? No, it's so cool.
I do find when I run Civilization on my MacBook Pro, that's the one application that will actually make my laptop get warm. But
I don't play Civ 6. I only play Civ 5. But
I have an old MacBook Pro because it still has a fan.
So. The Pros still have fans. The Air does not.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's my pick, and it's kind of a generic one, but I'm looking forward to my next trip because I'm going to be able to almost be as productive as I am at home. And the fact that everything now is just one standard connector, there's one cord to rule them all. And that is very, very nice when traveling.
Good stuff.
I'll go next. I'm wearing, in case this video ever comes out, my pick, which is Ray-Ban Meta glasses.
Oh, so I did think you looked cool, Chris, but I thought you were putting them on to see something that you were going to look at.
Meta glasses like glasses to let you to use glasses.
Pardon?
Are Meta glasses to like help you see glasses?
No. So these are the Facebook, Meta glasses that are smart glasses. Now there's no screen or anything in here. But you can. There are microphones on the glasses. There are cameras, so I can take a picture or I can take video. Or I can live stream to Facebook from the glasses. I also got them in color changing. What do you call it? Transitional lenses, so that I can wear them as just regular sunglasses. But they also then have speakers in the ears, so I can listen to my podcasts on them, or I can say, hey Meta, what's the weather going to be like today? And in my ears, Meta will respond through my phone. It's got to be connected to the phone for that. That intelligence is getting smarter. It's still, I'd say, in its infancy, but I've been able to, in a Medina in Tangier, say, what are the spices that I'm looking at, and have it take the picture that I'm looking at and give me the names of the spices, and I was able to identify the one that I wasn't recognizing.
What?
Or translate signs and things like that. So I think a little vision into what some device. There are more and more smart glasses coming out, and I think they're an interesting form factor. I like them. In terms of the specific Ray-Ban Metas, I love the camera. The camera is really nice. It's on the left side, though, so you have to be aware of that. Like the first pictures I took looking at a airplane window, I centered myself in the window with my face. Well, that doesn't work. You have to, center your left eye or whatever. But very good camera, useful, real easy to take video. So took video on a jet ski in Puerto Rico this year, and it was nice because I thought that I was not going to go into the water because I don't think they are waterproof, but it was nice to be able to like keep my hands on the jet ski and take first person point of view video. The glasses are about $400. One thing I don't like about them is if you need prescription, which I do, then that almost doubled the price. So that's way too much money. So I, hope they'll come down in price for the prescription lenses, but they're interesting. I find them useful. I wear them on my bike rides just in case I, need to take a picture of or a video of some weird thing going on with traffic or things like that. So I've got two new cameras. The other one is the Insta360, which is another real interesting camera that a lot of influencers are using now, where you take 360 video and then later on decide which video you want to use from it. So you can output from the same video horizontal or landscape, and you could use the point of view where you're looking at you or where you're looking away, and then you could change it in the editing software. So that's another real cool technology. That one I was given by Insta360, so that one was definitely worth the money. But
do you know how much that one is, if for people buying it off the street?
It's about $300-$400 for that one. So it's not bad. Very interesting. That one is waterproof also. But it was great. I was on a train in Majorca on a train ride, and just put it on my little selfie stick and stuck the camera out the window, and it got some great photos of the train ride using that. And so for the right application, it's very good. That one, like the Meta, is a wide angle lens, so you can't, it's limited by that functionality. You wouldn't, I still carry, if I need a telephoto, I still carry something with a telephoto. So I sometimes now travel with, something with a telephoto, the iPhone, the Insta360, the Meta glasses, and potentially my other underwater camera. But
we'll see. Do you want to give us a tip on the bag that you use to carry all these different devices?
Nah, nothing special.
I had a question about the glasses. So when do you buy the glasses as is for the Meta glasses, and then do you have to take it to
you buy it with
somewhere?
You give your prescription to Meta and get prescription glasses.
No, put the other ones back on. They look so cool.
The charging case is a regular glasses case that has a USB connector, and so you just charge them by putting in the case. Which is very clever. And they have very good battery life. I can wear them almost all day, and depending on how much video I'm shooting or things like that.
Absolutely cool. Wild. Gary, you think Apple's going to come out with their brand of that?
I've heard rumors that they were
in a different direction. So who knows?
I don't know. I've heard rumors that they were working on like augmented reality stuff with glasses. Their current VR headset has not sold well. And I just don't see the desire to have a gigantic thing in your head to
it's a very
play a video
different
game or
approach.
Watch TV. But Apple won't do anything until they get it right. Like they'll wait and wait and wait. I don't think they have a desire to be first.
Yep.
Jen, what do you got for us?
Ready for mine?
Yep.
So I am going to tell you guys, if you guys like skiing, I found a really affordable way to go skiing in France. So a friend of ours, when we lived in London ages ago, Cora was 1 to 2 years old. Our friend treated myself and Cora and brought us out to France to go skiing with them for a week because she found this amazing deal through this company called UCPA. UCPA.co.uk. Now, what they do is they are trying to get families to learn about skiing. And so it's an all-inclusive ski resort option. So for about $1,000 a person, I'm looking at Flame now for this year, and it's probably in the 800 to 1,000 pound range. And you got dormitory style accommodations, half-day ski lessons, lift passes, 3 meals a day, and all of that was included. And and for a week. It was for a whole week, and it was beautiful. So we went to Flaine, Flaine, and it was a purpose-built resort that was, just the village down below and the mountain right there, and you get to the top and you can look at Mount Blanc, and it was so much fun. But I was just blown away by the deal, because in California, if you're going skiing, it's deep into the 200s, almost $300 a day just for the lift ticket, not including accommodations, not including food. And so we just had a blast. And I was, all I could get my head around was I would rather go skiing again in Europe rather than here because of this amazing deal. So it's not very luxe. But it's perfect for families. And there you go. And let me see if I can find all the destinations that they have.
The other place I've been hearing a lot about is Georgia, the country, not the state, and the skiing in Georgia, where the daily rates, I want to say $20 or something like that, including rentals.
Wow.
So you've got to get there, and accommodation would be separate. But there are places that are less expensive destinations where the skiing is wonderful. If you are interested in, doing some traveling and some skiing. I am not a skier. I last skied in high school, so
I've never skied in my life.
They
really?
Also,
you grew up in Wisconsin, not even cross country?
No, we don't have hills, and winter is something to be suffered through, not enjoyed. You could be ice fishing, and you could be skiing.
Well, they have world.
One wonders why you live
well.
in Wisconsin if winter is something to be suffered through rather than enjoyed. But
that's why I'm going to go to Australia. Problem solved.
Okay, I'm going to correct my statement. It's not just for family travel. It's for all different types of activities. So it's snow sports, mountain sports, water sports, and other sports as well. And they do have global locations. ucpa.co.uk. Can't wait to go back and use them again.
Very cool.
All right, then let's wrap things up. Chris, where can people find you?
amateurtraveler.com is still the best place.
Jen?
Although I do own another website. Actually, I bought Hotel Scoop from Tim Leffel and have a hotel review website now, hotel-scoop.com.
Excellent.
Jen,
I'm
where
nowhere.
can people find you?
I'm nowhere. If you want to come
nowhere?
see me, please come see me in Carlsbad, California.
You don't want that.
I don't know. I feel like I had said, I took for granted our
I don't know if
time.
anyone's actually going to be listening to this, so
Maybe nobody's listening, but I do regret not being more in touch with our listeners. 11 years of listeners at however many thousand we had a month. That's a lot of people if you put them in a room. So I wish we had been more in touch. I wish we had, taken requests or something. I don't know. I wish we'd done more live events. Every time we did a live event, it was so much fun. When we did those T-Bex events, those were always my favorite time of year. So,
stuff costs money.
Yeah.
And you can find me wherever you are listening to this podcast, everything, everywhere, daily. Learn something new every day. Until next time, don't delete this feed because in a couple years, another episode might pop up of This Week in Travel.